Everyone got an invite to my brother's promotion party, except me. My dad said, "We figured you wouldn't care, since you're just the engineering guy." 2 weeks later, my cousin posted the banner. Then came the calls. Eli had a knack for turning the volume up on life, even when no one had asked for noise. "My name's Jason, I'm 27, and I live in Colorado Springs. I'm a structural engineer by trade, licensed, certified, and employed full-time with a mid-sized firm downtown. Not that my family's ever asked. Growing up, I was the quiet one. The one who finished homework early, read manuals for fun, and didn't argue at the dinner table. My parents, both career military, disciplined to the bone, loved order, sure, but they also loved excitement. And Eli brought that in spades. Eli's 3 years younger than me. A born performer, star athlete in high school, class president, could bench press a tractor and charm a snake at the same time. My mom once said Eli had command presence, a term she reserved for generals and CEOs. I never got words like that. I passed my PE license exam while juggling a full-time job and consulting side gigs. Quietly, took the exam in a dingy testing center on a Saturday morning, came home to a cold apartment, and sent a text to the family group chat afterward. Passed the PE exam. I'm officially licensed. 3 people saw it. Nobody replied. 2 weeks later, Eli passed some mid-level certification for his coaching program. Something to do with sports psychology or injury prevention, I don't know. My parents threw a dinner party, took him to a steakhouse, and posted a group photo on Facebook with the caption, "Proud of our rising star." I wasn't invited. I saw the photo because Aunt Margot tagged me. "Wish you could have joined us," she wrote. I hadn't even known it was happening. That kind of thing became normal. I was the backup plan at holidays, the filler seat at family dinners, the one expected to understand when plans changed last minute. And I did understand. For years, I told myself they were busy, that Eli just needed more support, that I wasn't being overlooked, just quiet. Invisible, maybe, but invisible by choice. That illusion shattered last Thursday. It started with a phone call from Aunt Janice. She was talking about carpool logistics or something when she casually mentioned, "So, are you going to Eli's surprise promotion party next weekend? He thinks nobody knows. It's at that new rooftop sports bar near the stadium." I paused. "What party?" "Oh, I figured your parents told you." They hadn't. I called my dad that evening. Asked him point blank. He sighed. "Didn't think you'd be into sporty stuff anyway. It's more Eli's crowd. You know how it is." Yeah, I knew exactly how it was. They hadn't even invited me. Not even an afterthought. Just assumed I'd prefer to be left out. And that was the moment, the precise second, something inside me finally cracked. I wasn't angry. Not yet. But I was done waiting for their attention to land on me like some random weather pattern. From that point forward, I'd make myself visible, not by shouting, not by asking, by being undeniable. It was a Tuesday afternoon, and I was halfway through reviewing a load-bearing simulation when my phone rang. The caller ID said Aunt Janice. I figured she was calling to ask about carpooling for Eli's party again, maybe to offer a ride since she thought I was invited. "Hey, Jason," she said. "Just double-checking. Did you want me to swing by and pick you up this Saturday?" I stared at the phone. "Pick me up for what?" "The party," she said, like it was obvious. "Eli's promotion thing." I let out a breath. "Janice, nobody told me there was a party." She was quiet for a beat. "Oh, I just assumed." "Yeah, so did I." I hung up not long after, politely, and sat in silence. It wasn't a long silence. Maybe 5 seconds. Just enough to feel the shift in my chest. Like standing under a sky that had been sunny your whole life. Only to realize the clouds had always been there. You just stopped looking up. I called my dad. He picked up quick. "Hey, bud. Everything okay?" I didn't bother with small talk. "Are you throwing a party for Eli this weekend?" He hesitated. "Well, yeah. It's nothing big. Just a few people from his coaching crew, some family. It was kind of a last-minute thing." "Why didn't you tell me?" There was a pause. "I didn't think you'd be into that kind of scene. You know, all that gym talk, beer pong, shouting over TVs. So you decided for me." He let out a light chuckle, like he was trying to play it off. "Come on, Jason. You've never been into that kind of thing." I didn't say anything. He added, "It's not personal." That part, that last sentence, hit harder than it should have. I'd been invisible for years, but this was the first time they'd made it official. I wasn't even worth a text invite. "Okay," I said. "Good to know. Jason, I've got a meeting. I need to go." Click. I didn't have a meeting. I had a blueprint open on my screen, a digital mock-up of a flood-resilient bridge design I'd been refining for weeks. It was part of a local infrastructure grant I'd applied for. Not exactly glamorous. Definitely not steakhouse-worthy. But it was real, tangible, important. And I'd poured myself into it with no applause, no audience. No, "you're such a rising star" speeches from my parents. Just steel and math and silence. That night, I stayed late at the office, sketching revisions on a printout while the lights hummed above me. Outside, the Colorado wind kicked up dust. Inside, I made a quiet decision. I was done waiting to be seen. From now on, I wasn't aiming for their praise. I was going to do what I'd always done, build something solid. But this time, I'd make sure they couldn't look away from it. Not because I needed their validation. Because I didn't. Not anymore. I graduated on a breezy Saturday morning, the kind where the air feels lighter than usual, like something shifted. It wasn't a traditional college graduation. This was an advanced civil infrastructure program, something you applied for once you'd already spent years in the field. Only 23 of us made it through. The ceremony was held on a hilltop lawn behind the engineering building, with folding chairs and a simple arch made from reclaimed wood. My name was the third one called. I didn't invite my parents. Instead, I invited people who'd actually shown up for me. Nora, my supervisor, who once covered for me during a hellish week so I could prep for the final exam. My best friend Alex, who'd known me since high school and never once made me feel like background noise. Mr. Jennings, the retired Army engineer who lived down the block and had taken me under his wing when I was 16. And Dr. Patel, my faculty advisor, who once stayed after hours to talk through floodplain stress tolerances when no one else had time. They came. Every one of them. We were halfway through the ceremony when something caught my eye. A massive vertical banner hanging from the side of the main building. I squinted. It was me, standing next to my bridge prototype, smiling. Above it, the words, "Building Tomorrow, Spotlight on Jason Lang, Civil Innovator." I blinked a few times. Dr. Patel leaned in and whispered, "Surprise. We submitted your project for the department's Spotlight campaign. You're the poster child this quarter." I didn't know what to say. I just nodded, feeling that odd pressure behind my eyes, the one that meant I was dangerously close to getting emotional in public. I kept it together. Afterward, we took pictures next to the banner. Mr. Jennings joked, "Guess I need your autograph now." Nora brought cupcakes from my favorite bakery. Alex posted a group selfie with the caption, "Real engineers were dirt. Proud of you, man." I didn't think much of it until later that night, when my cousin Jamie messaged me. "Jamie, dude, you were on my feed 3 times today. That banner's sick. Why didn't you tell us?" Me. Didn't think anyone would care. Jamie. Well, they care now. Group chats blowing up. Apparently, Jamie had posted a photo of the banner. Tagged me. Wrote a caption about how our family had a genuinely brilliant engineer and people should pay attention. It started spreading fast, not viral, but enough that even the aunts and uncles who usually ignored social media chimed in. At around 9:30 p.m., the phone call started. First my mom, then my dad, then Eli. I didn't answer. The voicemails ranged from awkward curiosity to manufactured guilt. "Why didn't you tell us? We would have come if we'd known. You should have given us a chance." It was almost funny. They hadn't invited me to Eli's party because they didn't think I'd be into it. But now that people were noticing me, now that they were the ones left out, suddenly I was interesting. The next morning, my inbox had a message from my dad. "Saw your picture on the banner. That bridge thing, really something. We're proud of you." I stared at it for a while. It wasn't anger I felt. Just this empty, hollow space where I used to keep hope. I didn't reply. Instead, I printed the photo of the banner and framed it. I hung it in my home office, right next to the PE license that no one had ever congratulated me for. That weekend, I took my mentors out for dinner. It wasn't fancy, just burgers and beers, but it felt like the right kind of celebration. The kind where people saw me, not because they had to, but because they chose to. That night, around 11, I called my mom. I sat in the dark, the only light coming from the hallway, phone pressed to my ear while I stared at the framed banner photo across from my desk. It had been nearly 24 hours since the ceremony, since the missed calls, since my name became briefly and inconveniently visible. She picked up on the second ring. "Jason," she said, her voice tight, like she'd been rehearsing calmness and wasn't quite ready to use it. "I was hoping you'd call." I didn't waste time. "Why didn't you come?" She hesitated. "We didn't know, sweetheart." "No," I said, steady and quiet. "Why didn't you ask?" There was a pause. I could picture her in the kitchen, leaning against the counter in her robe, twisting the cord of the old landline like she used to when I was a kid. She always needed something to fidget with when she felt cornered. "I suppose we just figured you'd tell us if it was important." "I did. I've been telling you for years. Just not with words." She sighed. "Jason, this doesn't have to be a thing. We're proud of you. Your dad said so." "No," I said, sharper now. "He said it after Jamie posted a photo. After the banner. After it was public. You were proud once people started noticing." Her silence was louder than any apology. I took a breath and continued. "Do you know when I passed my PE license? The one I studied for while working overtime, while fixing Eli's resume on weekends and helping you guys research home refinancing. I texted you all. Got nothing back. That's not fair, she murmured. It's exactly fair. I've got a list if you want it. Every time I hit a milestone, I kept hoping you'd show up. And every time Eli passed a certification or took a new photo in gym gear, it was a celebration. A dinner. A Facebook post. That's not, she started. It is. I cut her off. You built him a pedestal and handed me the broom. The line was dead quiet for a beat. I didn't realize you felt that way, she said finally. No, you didn't want to realize it. That's the difference. There was a long pause on her end. Then, quietly, Jason, I didn't mean for it to be like this. But it is, I said, and it has been, for a long time. She didn't deny it this time. What do you want me to say, she asked. That we failed you? No, I don't need you to say anything. I just needed you to hear it. Another pause. You're angry? No, I said honestly. I'm clear. That seemed to catch her off guard. I'm done waiting, I added. I'll keep doing the work. Keep building things that matter. But from now on, if I celebrate something, it'll be with people who actually see me. She tried to respond, but I was already saying goodbye. Good night, Mom. Click. I put the phone down and sat there for a long time. The silence didn't sting the way it used to. This time, it felt like mine. The email came in at 3:42 a.m. I wasn't asleep. I'd been reviewing sheer stress simulations on a prototype I'd been toying with after hours. Something experimental, nothing client-facing. Just the kind of thing you work on when you've stopped caring who's watching and just want to build something right. Subject line. Opportunity. European Pilot Initiative, Adaptive Infrastructure. I almost deleted it, assuming it was spam. But then I saw the sender, a director at the European Eco-Structural Design Consortium. I'd read their publications. They didn't just design for sustainability, they pioneered it. Flood zones, shifting terrain, emergency response bridges built in days, not months. I clicked. The message was short, direct, and surreal. They had seen a feature in the American Civil Infrastructure Review, a small piece on our program's top projects. Mine had been included, mostly thanks to Dr. Patel's lobbying. The email read, "Your work on adaptive bridge structures for high-risk flood zones impressed our review team. We're launching a pilot program in Central Europe and are seeking a project lead with your background. 6-month commitment, full funding, global visibility. If interested, let's talk." I reread it 4 times. Then I just stared at the screen, half smiling like a man who'd walked into the wrong room and accidentally been handed the keys to a kingdom. I didn't tell anyone at first. Not even Alex. The next day, I quietly pulled my resume together and sent over a portfolio package. They responded by the weekend. A video call was scheduled. By Monday morning, it was official. I accepted the offer. No family announcement. No dramatic reveal. Just me and my coffee and a formal reply that said, I'd be honored. I did tell Dr. Patel. She teared up a little. This is what happens, she said, when people stop waiting for permission to be extraordinary. The article featuring my work started making rounds again, this time with an updated byline. From Colorado Springs to Prague, Jason Lang's quiet revolution in flood engineering. My alma mater reposted the article. My old community college shared it too. Then a podcast reached out, Bridges of Tomorrow, wanting to feature me in a segment about new leaders in climate infrastructure. And still, I didn't hear from my parents. Well, not directly. Eli reposted the article on his Instagram story with 3 clapping emojis and 0 context. My mother left a comment on the university's alumni page saying, "So proud of our son, Jason. Always knew he had it in him." Which, of course, she hadn't. But now that everyone else could see it, she wanted a piece of it. I didn't reply. I didn't even like the comment. Instead, I updated my LinkedIn bio. Engineer. Builder. Focused on resilience, not recognition. I packed light. 1 suitcase, 1 laptop, and a stack of sketches I'd never shown anyone. Ideas too weird, too impractical, to me to ever fit inside their neat boxes. But now I wasn't waiting for anyone's box. I was building my own world. It was a quiet Thursday afternoon when Aunt Margot called. I hadn't spoken to her in weeks. Not since the graduation ceremony she'd shown up to unannounced, standing off to the side with sunglasses and a crooked smile, like she was watching history unfold. I answered on the 3rd ring. "Jason," she said without pleasantries, "we need to talk. You sitting down?" "Always a good sign," I said dryly. I pulled my chair back from the drafting table. "Go ahead. I don't know if anyone's told you. Actually, I know they haven't, but there's a trust." "A what?" "A family trust," she said. "Set up by your grandfather years ago. Originally, it was meant to be split between you and Eli. A joint inheritance, tied to the estate and the land." I blinked. "What estate?" "The Northwoods property," she said. "The land near Lake Fremont. You remember, The one with the big log house and the generator that never worked? I did remember. Barely. We'd only gone a few times as kids, back when it was all dusty antiques and spiderwebs and endless pine trees. I'd assumed it was sold off or forgotten. Okay, I said. So what about it? She sighed. They're trying to change the paperwork. Quietly. To make Eli the sole inheritor. Cut you out. My mind didn't process it all at once. Why? Your parents say it's because Eli has plans to develop it into something usable. He's working on a pitch with some investor friends to build a training facility or something. That's not a reason to disinherit someone. No, she said. It's an excuse. And it's happening fast. I only know because the notary they tried to use used to work with me. And this is legal? Technically? Not if the trust is still active and has no clause allowing for unilateral change. Which is why I'm calling. If you want to contest it, you'll need to move quickly. I stood up, walking slowly toward the window. The mountains outside looked the same as they always did. Strong, indifferent, eternal. I pressed the phone closer. Why didn't anyone tell me about this before? Margot chuckled darkly. Because you were never supposed to know. You were the steady one. The one who didn't need anything. I didn't speak. They figured you wouldn't notice until the land was already transferred, she said. And by then, well, what would you even do about it? Something inside me crystallized. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll fight. There was a pause. Good, she said. Because if you decide to go forward, I'll back you. I've got copies of the original paperwork, the family attorney's name, and more than a few contacts who still owe me favors. I exhaled slowly. Why are you helping me? Because I've watched them overlook you for years, she said. And now they're not just ignoring you, they're stealing from you. That's different. I ended the call and sat down, opening a new file on my laptop. Title: Lang vs. Lang, Preliminary Research. For the first time in my life, I wasn't just building structures. I was preparing to tear one down. The estate lawyer I hired was the quiet type. The kind who let long silences hang until the other person got nervous and said too much. Her name was Dana Hu, and after reviewing the documents Aunt Margot sent over, she looked up from her desk and said, flatly, "They really thought you wouldn't fight this." She filed the challenge within 3 days. A formal notice of objection to the trust alteration, citing lack of consent from both beneficiaries and an absence of valid cause. From there, things unraveled fast. Turns out, the amended trust paperwork had been backdated. Sloppily. The new document claimed the signatures were from last year, but my name had been signed using an outdated email address I hadn't used in almost 3 years. They hadn't even gotten the formatting right. Dana smirked when she found that. Amateurs. The investigation kicked into high gear. Within a week, we had a full copy of the original trust, the property deed, and digital metadata showing when and how the forged edits were made. It wasn't just shady, it was illegal. That's when the messages started. Text from my father. "Jason, you're blowing this out of proportion. This was just a misunderstanding." Voicemail from my mother, voice tight and defensive. "We just thought Eli had more practical use for the land. You've got your own place, your job, your European thing. You've always been independent." That word again. Independent. In their language, it meant, "You don't need." Which really meant, "We can take." I didn't reply. They kept coming. From Eli. "Bro, we didn't mean to cut you out. I thought you didn't care about the place. You're always so removed from this stuff." I almost laughed at that. Removed? I had been surgically extracted. Meanwhile, Dana sent a cease and desist to the family's lawyer, then filed for a formal audit of all changes made to the trust since our grandfather's passing. Within days, the ugly truth spilled out. Not only had they tried to make Eli the sole heir, they'd also initiated a quiet reassignment of development rights to a private LLC that Eli conveniently managed. They'd intended to flip the land, once the trust cleared, into a commercial asset. Gym lodges, hiking retreats, maybe a wellness spa. The only problem? Half of that land belonged to me. And now, every shady email, every unsigned form, every forged update, was part of the public record. The family group chat, long silent and dusty, lit up like it hadn't in years. Not with congratulations. Not with support. With panic. Cousins messaging, unsure who to side with. An uncle asking if the land was still good for camping that summer. And Eli? He left the chat altogether. I let them squirm. One message from my dad stood out above the rest. "We didn't think you'd care. You've always done your own thing." That line hit like a punch, and a dare rolled into one. No, I didn't care about their backyard politics. But I did care about being erased. This wasn't about soil or square footage. It was about principle. They thought I'd let it slide again. They thought I'd stay the invisible one. They thought wrong. By the end of the week, Dana emailed. Their attorney just offered to revert the trust to its original state. They want to avoid court. Up to you. I stared at the screen. This wasn't about revenge. This was about finally having the leverage to say, "You don't get to erase me and keep what's mine." I typed one sentence in reply. "We're not done yet." The invitation came by email from the American Society of Civil Engineers. "We would be honored to have you present at our upcoming national conference. Your recent work on adaptive infrastructure and your leadership in ethical design caught the attention of our keynote committee. If you're available, we'd love for you to speak." I stared at the message for a long time. They didn't ask for credentials. They didn't ask about Eli. They didn't even ask if I could fill a room. They just wanted to hear what I had to say. I replied with a single line. "Count me in." They gave me full freedom to choose the topic. Most engineers would have chosen something dry: tensile strength, design code updates, emerging tech in load distribution systems. Instead, I named my talk, "Structures We Overlook: The Hidden Toll of Invisible Labor." I wrote it in pieces, at night in my flat in Prague, on planes, in cafes, anywhere I could string a thought together. And it wasn't about bridges. Not entirely. It was about people. The kind who build things without credit, who carry weight without applause, who are seen only when something breaks. I told stories about overlooked engineers whose innovations were quietly repackaged and claimed by louder voices. I spoke about the toll invisibility takes, how it eats away at motivation, self-worth, and the quiet pride that keeps people going. And then, near the end, I shifted gears. I told them a story. My story. I didn't use names. I didn't rant. I just laid it out. I once spent years building things that mattered to people who never looked up long enough to see. I was the backup, the afterthought, the one who made things easier by not needing anything. I kept thinking if I worked harder, if I achieved more, maybe then I'd earn a seat at the table. But eventually I realized I was building cathedrals underground, hoping for sunlight that was never coming. The room was silent. That kind of silence you only get when the air shifts, when people feel what you're saying. After the applause, people lined up to talk. Younger engineers, a few professors, even a city planner from Detroit. They didn't ask about specs or diagrams. They said things like, "I felt like that. Thank you for saying what I couldn't." That was more honest than anything I've heard at this conference. Afterward, as I packed up my laptop, I spotted two familiar faces in the crowd. Aunt Margot and my cousin Jamie. They were standing near the exit, both misty-eyed and hesitant like they weren't sure I'd want to see them. I walked over. Margot was the first to speak. That was something else, Jason." Jamie nodded. "I had no idea." "I know," I said. "You weren't supposed to." Margot put a hand on my shoulder. "Well, you changed that. And for the record, we see you. Loud and clear." I smiled, not because I needed the validation anymore, but because for once, it was coming from the right people, the right place. That night, the talk was posted online. By morning, it had been shared across LinkedIn and picked up by Structural Digest Weekly under the headline, "When the Quiet Ones Speak, Jason Lang's talk on professional invisibility goes viral." My alma mater reposted it. So did my company. And then, someone unexpected did too, Eli. No caption, just a link. Maybe guilt, maybe understanding. Didn't matter. Because for once, I wasn't shouting. I was simply seen. And the whole room had listened. It was a Sunday. I had just finished folding laundry when I heard the knock. Not a friendly knock. Not the kind that waits. The kind that lands with weight. Finality. I opened the door. My parents stood there. My dad held a cardboard box in his arms. My mom stood beside him, clutching her purse with both hands like it might fly away if she let go. Neither of them looked me in the eye. "Jason," my mother said, soft like she hadn't just spent years making me feel like a ghost. "We thought we could talk," my dad added, shifting the box. I stepped aside. They walked in like strangers in a museum. Careful, quiet, cautious. My father set the box down on my coffee table and stepped back like it might explode. "What's in the box?" I asked. My mother opened it slowly. Inside were pieces of me. Old report cards. A third-place science fair ribbon from 8th grade. My high school calculus textbook, still full of margin scribbles. A photo of me in a wrinkled cap and gown from college, holding a diploma they hadn't intended to see me earn. "We kept these," my mom said. "I don't know why we never showed you." I looked down at the box, then back at her. "Because you forgot I existed until other people started noticing me." Her eyes welled, but she didn't cry. She wasn't good at real tears, not the kind that came from truth. My dad cleared his throat. "We messed up, son," he said. "You always handled yourself. You didn't need hand-holding. I guess we figured. Eli needed more." "And that made it okay to ignore me?" I asked. "To erase me from your life, from the trust, from your dinner tables and Facebook posts?" He looked at the floor. "No, it didn't." My mother finally spoke. "We thought you were fine without us. You didn't demand attention. You didn't ask for things." "I shouldn't have had to ask," I said. "You raised 2 kids and only ever looked at one of them. I didn't want the spotlight." I just wanted to matter. She nodded slowly. You're right. We sat in silence for a moment. Then my dad shifted forward. We talked to the estate attorney. We've stopped the trust changes. Eli agreed. The land will stay 50-50, as it was meant to. I didn't say thank you. I didn't know them that. I'm not angry anymore, I said. But I don't want revisionist history, either. You didn't just miss things. You chose not to look. That's what hurt. My mom nodded, tears now sliding down her cheeks, finally real ones. We want to do better, she whispered. If it's not too late. I looked at both of them. For once, they didn't look like giants. They looked small, flawed, human. It's not about time, I said. It's about choice. You spent years showing up for the loud one. You had chances, you just didn't take them. My father stood up. We'll go now, but we're trying. I didn't stop them. They walked to the door, slowly, like they were waiting for some sign I'd changed my mind. I didn't. At the door, my mom paused. That talk you gave, we watched it. Twice. I nodded. You said visibility isn't about being present, she said. It's about choosing to see. That hit hard. I didn't respond. I just opened the door. They stepped out, and I closed it behind them. Not with anger. Not with revenge. Just with peace. Let them sit with the silence I'd known for 27 years. This time, I wasn't the one who'd been erased. They were. 3 months later, the paperwork was finalized. The trust was legally rebalanced. 50-50, just as it was originally written. The development rights were dissolved from Eli's LLC, and the property title was updated to include my name, officially and irrevocably. I didn't sell my portion. I didn't develop it. Instead, I did something else. I worked with Dana, my estate lawyer, to establish a scholarship fund using the value of my share. We pulled from my savings, too. Not a flashy foundation. No gala dinner. Just a solid, legally binding endowment tucked into a quiet line item under the Civil Infrastructure Development Association. It was called the Margaret Lang Fellowship, named after my grandmother. She was the only one in the family who had ever believed in me without conditions. She used to give me old engineering books when I was little, even if I could barely read them. She didn't understand any of it, but she'd always smile and say, "You've got builder's hands, Jay, and builder's patience." The scholarship was for underrepresented students in civil engineering, especially the quiet ones. The ones who didn't stand out in a crowd, but who made the walls stay upright, the roads stay safe, the bridges never collapse. I didn't tell my parents. Not at first, but the announcement was picked up by a local trade magazine. Then my alma mater shared it in their newsletter. That's when the texts started rolling in again. This time softer. Careful. From Eli. I saw the scholarship. That's actually pretty cool, man. No grand gesture. Just that. 3 days later, I got a notification from the fund's site. Anonymous donation received. $2,000. I didn't need a name. I knew it was him. I didn't reply. That wasn't the point. This wasn't about winning a moral argument or finally being the favored son. This was about closing a chapter and starting one that didn't begin with trying to be noticed. I spent a weekend up at the Northwoods property, walked the old trails, sat by the silent lake that still reflected the same sky we used to skip rocks under as kids. The log house was in rough shape, but the bones were strong. I left a small plaque on the gate. Margaret's land, preserved in her memory. I could have torn it down and rebuilt something shinier. But not everything needs to be visible to be valuable. Back in the city, life kept moving. The Europe contract ended. I took on a new position leading sustainable design for a Midwestern firm, mostly remote. People started coming to me for guidance, asking how to balance visibility with integrity, how to lead without shouting. Every now and then, a student would email about the fellowship. Most of them didn't even know who I was. They just wanted a shot. And I gave it, because I knew what it was like to go unnoticed, and what it meant to be seen. Truly seen, for the work you do, not the noise you make. At the end of the year, the fund published its first impact report. 17 recipients. For bridge designs submitted. 2 interns hired into public works. 1 job offer extended to a kid from a rural high school no one had ever heard of. I printed the report and filed it next to my framed banner photo. No spotlight. No parade. Just legacy. Quiet. Permanent. Solid. Like a bridge built to last.